Alright, so we're live. We're rolling. Oh my gosh. The wife. The doctor. Oh shit, I don't have my cap.
Oh no.
I was waiting around here while the ads were going and I didn't grab my cap. Cheers. Oh yeah. We got beer, we got wine. Can I come back here?
Can you?
Can I fit with my huge dick?
I had a tail.
I have a tail, she said proudly.
Well, of course. Well, they had to see it.
I love you so much.
It wasn't obvious.
No, it's very true. Mm-hmm.
Hey, don't,
Very nice tail.
don't squeeze
Sorry,
my tail.
I'm sorry.
Such a pervert. Tail!
Tail! My god. Alright. And I got the t-shirt I got for free at DreamHack 2019. It's so comfy.
It is actually my dress.
It is your dress, you say? Oh right, yeah. This is the one that goes like almost to your knees, right?
Yeah, that's my dress.
Jesus. But I feel like it looked like a real streamer here as well. I see the Malibu. Now I want
do
some.
I look like a typical streamer wife?
No, X-Gamer said that he saw the Malibu and now he
It
wants
is
it.
Malibu bubbly.
It is the bubbly
It is the
Malibu.
best.
I just want to see like what can we see from here. I haven't inspected this very much.
But don't do it now. Why?
What? No, like what can you see in the background? Like this?
You
This-
haven't checked it? Safety checked?
That's a watercolor painting, actually a sugar color painting that I made when I was a very small child. And you wanted us to hang it up here.
Yes.
Yeah. It is the bubble.
Yeah.
Yep. He hid it. I didn't hide it. And we got some Loch Ness monsters up here. Got them from Bestie. And got a beer in my hand. And we got the close-up camera here. And the white balance with it on it is really fucking weird, but at least you can see stuff. It feels like I'm in the way of you when I'm standing here.
I am the real star, I know.
You are though. Oh my gosh, Stoney said he heard Loch Ness. Yes, we got Nessie up here. You see Nessie? Nessie and her wee kids. Hey, what up, Pixie?
I cannot see the chat.
You can see the chat? I mean, you can bring it up on your phone if you want.
I
You
don't
want to
give
sit closer?
I don't want to give you views. But this is not going to be good either. This is very annoying.
Yeah. Oh, wait. If we no.
No, but I'm secret. Secret.
That is. Isn't that cute? Isn't that super cute?
I really feel like the little mascot. Like, hello.
Like, see, if you wanna hide, if you feel like people are looking at you too much, you can just go full chipmunk. Pixie says she wants a Pikachu one.
They have a Pikachu one.
The best, and we love her.
Wifey is the best. Big and cute wifey. Oh my god. I'm placing your wine over here.
Right.
When? But great, then you can be my chat bot. She's super adorable.
I'm
Don't blush, you look awesome.
I really am.
Literally telling her not to blush will make her blush as
I
well.
should have worn makeup or something. No.
No. No, fuck makeup.
Why?
This is us, we're just
Wait, go over by the stove, pretend you're cooking.
cookily cookily cook.
Oh, I'm gonna have so much fun!
Yes.
Okay, I love it. This is my
Alright,
place.
so Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh yes, cooking!
Natural beauty over there, yeah. Also, like, you can see the small camera over here. It's right by the sink, because that's the only way we could set it up. And
Very exciting.
it is not good to have electricity that close, but first off, when you do cooking,
Turn off the water!
no, you have to wash the hands.
Yeah, but... Oh god, you make me so nervous!
This is
what I live with.
This is not according to safety standards.
Every day.
And you wash your hands carefully and properly.
Vegan hand wash.
Vegan hand wash, very important. Very important. Big and cute wifey. I also like this time around when
Yes.
when I tagged people on Discord, I tagged everyone and not just live updates, but like everyone who was in the Discord. Just like not everyone has the live update, and this is a special one, so I was like, everyone should know this.
Oh God.
I don't think the TTS works. No.
What's that?
Text to speech. Also, I think. Wait, let me. The worst thing about this setup is that I don't know where stuff is. Biceps, triceps, allmänt, grym. Fiddlesticks, but you can always use the. I move the close-up cam closer or zoom it in.
What was that?
This TT's works though, little.
That's why I wanted to increase the volume as well.
This is great.
But now we know. Alright. Can I move it closer? I can't. How would I zoom it in? Like, these are my hands. Like, you're gonna see me working here. How much more zoomed in do you want it?
Let's try it and see
We're
how
trying
it
it.
goes.
We're trying it. Alright. We're making some veganized Swedish meatballs with some mashed potatoes. So the first thing we need to do, because that takes the longest, is start boiling potatoes. Yuck. And for that we need to have a fuck ton of potatoes.
Do we have a fuck ton of potatoes?
Oh my
over
gosh, do
there?
we have a fuck ton of potatoes?
Oh my gosh, we
Oh my
do.
gosh. You'd almost think we're Irish. Oh yeah. Y'all couldn't see the wife's face there. Oh, yeah.
I
You can see
recently-
the pan close up. I mean,
Oh.
fair, but
Oh, the pan.
potato. Yep, that's it. That's what it is. Potatoes. And of course, being very conscious about everything, I use these reusable bags as well. Can you not set the close-up cam as a POV cam? Is the cable long enough to attach to your shirt? It is not. Like the distance it is at the moment is the longest the cable will go. Like you see here, I'm moving closer and it's falling. I'm terribly sorry.
He
But
will
that's the way
work
it
on
is.
this till the next time.
We could use Droid Cam. I mean, we don't have Droid Cam up and running yet either.
What's that?
It's where the phone becomes a camera and you can stream from the phone and stuff.
No.
But we're not gonna do that right now. We're not gonna do that right now. We are going to peel potatoes. this is the
It's gonna be
sexy,
so exciting.
right? This
Oh
is
my-
the sexy start of the stream. We're gonna peel potatoes. What?
Nothing.
Oh, you're so annoyed that I just poured them out there and it's...
What kind of psycho is this?
I mean, if you change your mind, DM me on Discord. I'm not gonna
Oh, my
DM
God.
anyone. I'm gonna be cooking food. But usually what I do is, like when I peel potatoes, I do it under running water, but I feel like here it would be a problem. Like having running water going constantly.
Well, maybe have a little bowl with water and dip it. It's easier to peel and it's. I find.
Yeah.
You don't,
No, I agree.
you don't have to.
Let's see here.
Oh! Excellent! Here you go.
Yo, kitchen space, where the fuck is April?
Excellent.
Alright, fine.
Excellent, Sturdy.
Fine.
That is great.
I gotta protect this beautiful outfit.
Oh, wait.
Alright. Is that better? I am cute with the apron.
That fix the tail?
I know I have a lot of ideas. Please don't hate me. Why would I hate you for having ideas?
That's
I use
fantastic,
camera
Amy.
camera. Might only be an iPhone app.
Gosh,
Well,
you're so cute.
it's my ET shit. IT shit or does the stream keep like buffering every 30 seconds? I don't think it's buffering every 30 seconds. Already says it might be the best stream ever already. Dang.
Because of me, right? No.
Because of you, wife. I'm just gonna put all the taters in here. But I've never seen my dad in an apron, and now first time I see Doctor in an apron.
He's so cute.
Honestly, like I never use an apron normally, but that's also because I usually cook in my shittiest clothes. I don't usually use. Did you pinch me in the camera?
Just your back.
Oh my god, just my bat. Oh my gosh.
This is gonna escalate.
What do you mean it's gonna escalate? Is that a promise or a threat?
Yes.
Wifey is the best. This is very, very true.
I tried to explain. Okay, my colleagues asked me about my weekend plans, and well, some of them are boomer adjacent.
Boomer adjacent.
And,
Boomer adjacent.
first of all, they do not understand streaming whatsoever.
They do not.
Second of all, I was trying to explain my role in it, and I said, well, I'm like his mascot, I guess. So hence I felt this was very mascot-y.
Poo 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 pee 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 poo 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 pee 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 poo 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 pee poo poo pee pee poo 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 pee 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 poo pee 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 pee
That's
poo.
me.
Don't laugh, don't laugh, don't
That's
laugh.
from,
You
trying
suck
to
if you
make,
laugh. Pee pee
Noble's
pee
laugh
poo. Oh pee
at
pee
one
pee
point.
poo. Oh my gosh, he can't stop laughing. Oh my gosh.
It's a blurb.
Sure.
Hey, what up, Jaboom? This is new, but I like it.
Good guy.
Of course you like it. Everyone loves a man who cooks. I don't even know what I'm doing here, though. Like, I mean, cooking-wise, I know what I'm doing, but, setup, I've never used
Bird. Birdie.
before.
Birdie,
The
birdie.
boom wants to know what you're cooking, man.
It's
Wish you weren't so
literally in the
fucking
Mano.
awkward,
He said
bud.
Mano, not man.
Mano.
Yeah.
It's veganized Swedish meatballs with some mashed potatoes. It's all vegan, all super unhealthy. Because remember, just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's healthy, kids. Vegan doesn't always mean like, oh, it's full of veggies and the good stuffs. In this household, it usually just means like oat cream. A lot of
Well,
oat cream.
we're trying to make sure I maintain my weight because I drop weight easily.
Yeah. So we gotta fatten up the wife.
Yes. Gonna be thick.
Thicker. Because we
Well, I
talked
am
about
quite
the.
thick.
Yeah, you've already gotten quite thick.
Fix cam.
Fix cam.
Fix cam.
Fix cam. Maybe put it on the other side. That was weird.
I don't know how to.
No, because the cord is pulling it, right? Maybe have to put it on the other side. Like put it over here if you wanna. Then
Oh,
Do
you
it,
mean
do
like
it.
this?
yes.
There?
Yes. There.
Wife is the best. Hell yeah! Hell yeah! This is-
God.
You are cute.
Nothing that happens on the internet stays on the internet, right? Anyway,
I mean, everything that happens on the internet stays on the internet.
what is that
Oh, this is much
KEWK thing?
That's an emoji that's only visible on the Twitch. It's it's this old meme of a dude laughing his ass off and he has very few teeth in his mouth. He's like,
I still do not get it.
no. Learning experience here. Soon Dark will be the new Emerald. Who's Emerald? Is that a cooking streamer?
Thank you, Pixie.
I haven't watched a lot of cooking streams. Like I've seen some clips on the socials. Is Emerald the furry guy who is super funny?
I'm just a hedgehog on a Roomba, out for a joyride, what's it to ya? Might turn this vacuum into an Uber, make myself some moolah. Roomba, the hedgehog's riding Roomba.
You're just doing this way quicker than I am. I'm taking like I'm like taking my sweet time. I enjoy peeling potatoes.
That's good.
Jesus Christ. This is like really, you're watching me and you're like, this is inefficient, do it better.
No, you don't even see me.
Amarillo Lagasse, he's a chef, old school chef with a TV show. Oh, gotcha. Never really heard of him. I haven't watched a lot of like cooking shows on TV. I watched Iron Chef, like in the early noughts. Kind of like Bobby Flay or Gordon Ramsay. Oh, okay, gotcha. I don't know who Bobby Flay is either. Oh, wait, I gotta straighten my back. No. I have a shitty back. That's just the way it is.
Because of the Danish.
Because of the Danish. This is actually true. Got a genetic disorder thanks to my Danish genes that makes my back crooked. Sadly. I watched way too much Gordon Ramsay shows. I mean, Gordon Ramsay I've watched. It's fucking raw! Oh, and have you seen the meme of when he takes 2 pieces of bread? Puts
Idiot sandwich?
Yeah, the idiot sandwich.
Yes. You cannot have missed that one. Not even I have missed it.
It's so good though. Like I really think that they rehearsed that shit beforehand, but I want it to be improvised. Let's see here. I gotta grab my beer.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
What are you? An idiot sandwich. Thank you, enemy. Or was that a good guy? I couldn't see.
You fucking donut. Of course you don't put a salad in a microwave.
Fucking donut, of course you don't put salad in a microwave.
Wait, you told her? You told her?
No, I haven't told them. That's the best part. The wife.
No!
The wife has actually microwaved a salad like a couple weeks ago. I made her a salad. I made her a salad to take to work. And usually it's always like microwavable food. And you said you were talking to a colleague?
I was telling a story to a colleague of mine, and I was really into it. And it was just my routine. We went down to the cafeteria, we put our lunch boxes in the microwave, started it, and I continued my story. And then I had a very horrible salad.
Did you still eat the salad?
Yes, I
What the
did.
fuck? Who eats a microwave salad?
It was really disgusting. I didn't
Of
have.
course it was disgusting.
I didn't have anything else.
We're not poor. You could have gone out and had something.
I didn't have time. I had meetings.
Jesus
God.
Christ. I have to kiss wife now?
No, you do not.
The stream says I have to kiss wife.
Sorry for you.
Mwah. You got the kiss on the head.
Against the consent. Well.
I'm terribly sorry. Oh my gosh. Microwave salad.
Wait, so why did you do a microwave salad thing?
It's a thing. It's a meme.
I have been told that I'm a walking meme. It's true.
It is true. It is true. That's what I'm saying.
God.
Look, if you just sold your soul and you were online 24/7, you could really make a career out of just your personality work.
Shit. I don't think that's a good thing.
I mean, money. It's always something, you know.
Who needs self-respect?
Honestly, who needs self-respect on a $40 million yacht? Not Jeff Bezos.
Very seasick.
That's true. That's true. Gordon Ramsay said it. It's a quote.
Okay. Very sad.
Did you tell them? Did you tell them?
I was so upset.
Just immediately outing yourself there.
Shit.
Got so much potato starch on our hands now.
What? Yeah. Oh, this one's very green.
You can do the green ones.
No, they are poison.
No, they're not.
I have.
No,
Now, to
that's
be
your
fair.
mother who's
To be
told you this, and
fair.
she
To
was
be
telling me
fair.
about it. To be fair. To be fair. To be fair. Oh my gosh. Of course you can eat green potatoes. Just take.
You are green potato. Wait, yeah, this is not working. I cannot occupy my wine hands.
I cannot occupy my wine hands.
This is very, very bad.
It's not even green. Like, it's green directly under the skin, and then you peel off the skin, and it's not green anymore. Wow.
Green potatoes are bad to eat because they usually contain higher levels of solanine, a natural toxin that the potato produces as a defense against pests, sunlight, and damage.
Yeah, they're not toxic.
I appreciate you so much, X-Gamer. This is great. This is
Motherfucker, whose side are you on?
mine,
God
obviously.
damn.
Wifey side. Wait, no.
Wifey side?
Shit! Don't get any ideas.
Wifey side. We murder the wife. We murder the wife.
Ah.
This close-up camera is shit.
But if a potato has just a small green patch,
No.
you can cut away the green part generously and still eat the rest.
Yes, but it was.
But if
like
it's widely green
small
or tastes
potato.
bitter, it's safest
Very
to
good.
throw it away.
I mean, it's like a small green hue. It's not green, it's greenish. Oh my gosh. Hey, thank you, Pixie.
Shared 100 bits. Holy shit, what? Why would you even do this? Where do you get this
She's
money?
throwing money at me. Because I'm a stripper.
Did she just get a telling off from the automated voice? Why would you do this? How dare you?
That's literally what I programmed it to do. Or I set it to that. Because, like, when I started streaming, I was like, who would ever gift me 100 bits? That's too much. Booty shake. Oh, okay.
Do you want a fan?
I actually do want the fan.
Yeah.
Could you grab that? I would appreciate it greatly. Blue strips. I had to.
It completely ruined your ass.
It completely ruined my.
Shared 100 bits.
Oh my gosh.
Why would you do this? Where do you get this money from?
Wait, is that the rule for this stream that whenever someone cheers 100 bits, I gotta shake my ass?
No, that's a real stripper.
It's not even a real strip because like 100 bits is like what, $1.50 or something? I don't know, not $1.50.
Shared 100 bits.
No, gosh.
Why would you even do this?
Oh.
Where do you get this money from?
Thanks, Knights. What the fuck?
Hype train started.
Thanks, Knights. I very much appreciate it.
Is this good, baby?
Yeah, it is. Clip. Holy shit. Oh my gosh. It's becoming a gif. Oh my gosh.
Oh, sir.
Next game, 2000.
What the fuck?
Just shared 100 bits.
Wait, do I gotta turn my whole ass towards the camera, or?
Where do you get this money from?
Jesus.
Bill Pix just shared 300 bits.
Dude was lurking and enjoying the comedy.
Where do you get this
Thank you so much. Me and the wife are very cute. I gotta shake the ass once more.
Ooh, thy night. I
Wait, that's
love
Pixie
that.
cheered Pixie cheered 300 bits. I gotta shake my ass like
Where
1,
do you get this money?
2, 3. Oh Jesus Christ. Sorry, I didn't mean to yell at you or anything. It's just I get excited when stuff happens. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We gotta give a shout out to Thy Night as well.
That's a banger name.
Right?
I really like it.
Also known as Thigh Night.
Ah. Any mice wants booty shakes?
Me and Thy Night. What about my booty shakes? me and Thy Night both hang out in Karoo's stream a lot, and we make her life a living hell. There. So if you want other thirsty content, Dynite is the place to be. Oh my gosh.
It is quite warm in here.
Yeah, especially in the chipmunk suit. You could have something else on if you want to. You don't have to be a chipmunk all stream long.
That's oh, I can have like multiple outfits. It's like a gala or something.
Are you gonna do like
Fit checks, no, outfit changes and
Yeah.
reveals and oh, where's that smoke machine?
We don't have a smoke machine, and now that I say that out loud, I feel like we definitely should have a smoke machine in this
I'm
house.
quite
Right?
quite
Jesus
surprised we
fucking-
don't have one.
Seriously though.
Oh well.
Bits don't add to the push-up debt, by the way. We should fix that. No, we should not. We should not. Oh my gosh. What would it be? Like 100 bits is like 5 push-ups, 2 push-ups?
Wow, that's all you think it's worth?
Oh my fucking
Okay.
god. I'm thinking about... Do you see that debt? It's 1,613.
So?
It's a lot.
Yes.
Also, we're not enabling the push-up thing for this stream because I'm not going to be doing push-ups and cook at the same time.
And he still's got a broken toe.
Get a broken toe. See? See? Broken toe! Oh no, now I showed my feet. How much
Oh,
did
no.
you 10 right now? I'm not, no. They're asking me like how much should they pay?
Oh! Oh!
Like how much do they need to pay for me to do push-ups
Wiki
right
feet.
now? Oh my fucking
That's
god!
my boy.
I forgot that Wikifeed is a thing.
Wait, it's real?
Yeah, don't you know?
No, I thought that was a funny thing to say.
No,
It's a
Wikifeed is a
real
real
thing.
thing. Yeah, people
Holy
like
shit!
they upload photos of celebrity feet and then they rate them.
Oh.
Yeah, it's super fucking weird. Unless you're really into foot stuff, then I think it's a wonderful resource, I guess. No, not for you.
No, I was just.
Oh my gosh, Xgamer seems like Xgamer accidentally googled that shit as well. So that's that.
Oh,
now that's in your search history,
no.
man.
I'm sorry. Only Dr. Feet? Yeah.
Only Dr. Feet.
.com.
Sick. .com, of course. Of course, it has to be .com. Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh god.
Guys, vote in the poll.
What?
100 bits equals how many push-ups? You can't put that to a vote to the community. They'd be like, oh, 100 push-ups, 100 bits is 1 million push-ups, me. No, not to shit on my own community, but y'all are a bunch of sadist fucks.
Oh yes, he can actually.
Oh my gosh.
I think he is able.
Thank you so much for the hype train. Oh my god. That's so fucking weird as well, because like the hype train only reached level 1, but we got so many bits. Like the hype train usually goes higher if you have subs and stuff, and I don't understand that at all. Like it doesn't care for bits at all, the hype train. That's so fucking annoying. Choo choo.
I do not understand this.
Oh my gosh. Enemy, could you clip the wife saying choo choo, and then we use that sound whenever we get a hype train instead.
But I was so listless. I was not.
Yes,
not
that's the
excited at
fun stuff.
all.
That's the fun
It sounds
stuff.
so ungrateful. It's
That's
horrible.
super fun.
Horrible.
Oh
Oh
my gosh.
god. Yes, sir.
Bits are less value than subs. Yeah, I know. It's just, I think it's shitty.
The hype train grows depending on the month streak of the resub. I did not understand that sentence.
The hype train grows depending on the month streak of the resub. Oh, so for like, Enemy has been subscribing for 12 months. So
Shit!
when-
Really?
Yeah,
Damn!
him and Bestie, I think, are the only ones. I think Xgamer has been subbed for like 10 months, maybe?
What the fuck
No,
are you
but
talking
what,
about, man?
Stoney's saying, like, if you've been subscribed for 10 months, or 12 months.
The fuck are you talking about, man? You offended Xgamer. Oh no.
What the fuck are you talking about, man?
No.
No, he said 10 months. So,
Yes,
if it's
10
like
months. Okay, he's
12, if it's like 12 months in a row, then when you resubscribe, the system will be like, oh, you've done this a lot, so your subscription is worth more than just any old subscription for the hype train.
So it's a loyalist program.
It's loyal. I mean, loyalist is very, it's very aggressive.
Yes.
I think, at least.
Oh,
my
God, it's
gosh.
not even open over here. No.
Not even open where?
Through the balcony.
Through the balls. Do you think our neighbors will like try to come in
Yes.
and see what's going on?
I miss the cats.
Right? They might have died.
No. How dare you?
I mean, they haven't
We
seen them in a
had
while.
neighborhood cats come in and.
I'm thinking about getting Doom Dark Ages or Starfield. Both are on sale. Don't know what I should get. Both are also really good games.
Nice. Yeah, you should get them all, X-Gamer. Get every single game your heart desires.
You should get Ale and Tail.
That's
Alien
so
Tail is
fucking
fun.
annoying.
What the fuck?
I think it was a walk-on. No.
No, it's a new clip. It's the choo choo.
That's so fucking annoying.
Oh, it's you going choo choo and then me laughing at it.
I didn't hear it.
You can increase the volume over there, so we hear the stream better. Could you actually? Oh my gosh. That's good, I think.
I can get all of them, but I will eat my money.
But that will eat my money. I have
Yes.
standards to not use too much money.
That's very good.
That's pretty smart, yeah.
Self-control. It's very impressive. Good,
Something
good
I
on
don't
you.
have. And that's why I'm married now. No, just kidding. Oh my god. The side eye. No, love me. Love me. Don't leave me. No. I dread to think what she's gonna put on now. Do it. Get them both. Yeah, like if you want financial advice, X-Gamer, I don't think this stream is the place to go. We're all, ah! No, 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 ah! Fuck, 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 no, no, no! Ah! Ah! Shit! Ah! Asshole! Ah, my back! Oh, fuck! Ah! You hit the fucking potatoes! Jesus Christ! Oh my god! Fuck's sake!
You deserved it.
I did. Oh my gosh. I ain't listening to the voices. Clip. Wait, why can't anyone clip? That's annoying. Oh my gosh. Let's see if that works then. I can't clip either? What the fuck? What is this? Wait, what the fuck? It's cooldown? Okay, what do you mean did push-ups? I haven't done, why are we adding push-ups? What the fuck? What is happening now, enemy? You deserve it. Wait, so it's 16 push-ups per 100 bits? Is that what you're saying?
Fair.
No, that's way too much. 800 bits,
You
2 push-ups per 100 bits. All right.
You thought
gotcha.
nobody would ever gift you 100 bits, so.
No, and now I'm forced to do push-ups for it instead, and I'm not happy about that at all. Fuck, I made my clip too slow.
Oh, sorry.
You have 10 for a sub, man. It's not too much. No, like 2 for 100 is fine. I just thought you meant 16 for 100 bits. Is like that's what it was. Like 100 bits would be 16 push-ups, and that would be way too much. Pixie is so fucking fast on that. Thank you so much for clipping, Pix. Oh my gosh. I think Knight is also clipping and stuff.
I felt kind of like Scarface.
Say hello to my little friend, Roar.
Yeah, that was great. That was a gift
Doc,
from
do you
Dr.
trust me?
Bem on our
Can I add a
first
custom
anniversary.
redeem goal for this stream?
Can I add a custom redeem goal for this stream? Yeah, sure. Let's try it out.
What does that?
Let's try it out, Amy.
What's that?
I don't know. He just asked me if I trust him and he wants to add something. I clip for Reggie all the time. I know. And he's
Who's
doing such a
Reggie?
good job.
Your boyfriend.
Reggie's Nobles.
What? Docs.
Yes.
No wait. What's
No.
Okay.
He says his name. Like, your
Oh.
first name is okay to say on stream. It's not a problem, really.
God, these rules.
Hit me with your fat cock. Why don't you hit me with your fat cock?
Wait, what?
Hit me with your cum shot. Fire away.
Can I at least get an A for effort? Of course you can.
I'm
Of
very
course you can.
scared.
A. Anarchy for effort.
I need,
What up, Panda? You need what?
I need another yeah.
Another!
Carrot thingy.
Another horror thingy? Alright, we're gonna... So what we've done now is the first step here. We've peeled the potatoes. So now I'm pouring some water on them. I'm just gonna let them settle in water for a little while. Because usually that draws out the starch as well after you peel them.
We hate starch.
We hate starch! Urgh. But we love Stark. As in Tony Stark.
R.I.P.
Nice white fire extinguisher, right? It's so nice. Just blends in, so when there's a real fire, you won't be able to see where that is and where the rest of the apartment is. It's best. What was I gonna do? This is usually this is very much how cooking goes for me. I do stuff and then I forget what I'm doing and then I try to do more stuff.
And I sit here drinking wine, whining about my day.
That is true. Do you want to whine about your day?
Get it? Whining about my day.
Yeah, I get it.
Good.
No, I get it. I get it.
I am actually originally from the Gothenburg area, and we love puns. My peoples.
Bad puns as well.
Right. Yes.
Why the fire extinguishers are usually bright red. Yeah, it's so you can see the fuckers. Squirrel moments. Them wifey onesies is fitting. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, it's actually. I studied university in Lund in Sweden, and it's very
The
very
oldest and best university city in Sweden.
well.
Why
It's a lot of it's not sororities and fraternities, but like a Swedish co-ed version of that.
Yeah.
And it's like a big thing. We have like grand balls. We have like ball gowns and
Grand balls!
any Huselbees. In like the castles and everything, and it's very very fancy. And we party till like 4 a.m. But then everybody goes home. They change into their spirit animal onesie, and then we
Spirit
continue
animal.
partying all day. And your friends have to assign you your party spirit animal, and I am of course a squirrel.
You went to upscale. Wait, the custom challenge is Gordon Ramsay challenge. I need to see here. He needs to do this entire stream like Gordon Ramsay would. He needs to talk like Gordon Ramsay, do things like... No, I'm not the entire fucking stream, dude. No, not the entire stream, but I'll definitely do like Gordon Ramsay stuff. And the entire stream? Alright, fine. I have to do more Gordon Ramsay stuff.
If you call me an idiot sandwich, we are divorcing.
I mean, he's also done some food programs where he's really nice and supportive and stuff. Also, I just want to point out before I use this, this is a special Japanese wife. This is a special Japanese knife the wife got me for my birthday. So I'm going to use it today. Basically to chop onions as well. Like that's basically the only thing we're going to do here. But it's such a good knife. Spirit animal equals no clothes.
What's
Wow,
it?
Pixie.
What? That's a thing?
Wow, Pixie.
I didn't know
No,
that.
she's asking if.
Oh, no. We all had different. My friends were a giraffe and a panda. I had a snow leopard.
Those Japanese wives.
My ex-boyfriend was such a koala bear, you know. Yeah.
Because he was clingy? Or because he had chlamydia?
I won't say anything else. But he dumped me, so.
Knife needs some meat action. No, it does not.
What? Don't encourage him. Oh, he did not mean stab me with it.
No, he meant. I don't think the stream would ever want me to hurt you, ever.
I'm getting a little bit drunk.
A little bit. Hey, remind me. In meatballs, you usually have like the yellow onion, not the red onion, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Good. Yeah. Fuck. Ah.
Oh, and we're growing plants in our onion.
No, we're not. It's just one red onion has sprouted a little bit. It's fine.
Yeah, so a little bit, Pixie. Yes, I'm with you. And I
Shut
just
up,
want to
Pixie.
say, disclaimer for my sake, the kitchen is all his.
Yeah.
I have nothing to do with the kitchen.
So if you hate anything that's going on here, then you
Yes,
hate me,
indeed.
and I'll take it personally.
Yes.
Yeah. So mean. All right, so we're chopping an onion. We're gonna chop it fine.
I have to change. This is.
It's warm.
I do not sweat, but I'm sweating.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh, where are my?
Where am I? Ooh. Oh my gosh. People show guns on stream. We're gonna mince them, yeah. Honestly, the other camera is real shit. Let's see if we can change it somehow. Configure video has to be, right? Hey, look at that. Less brightness. We could decrease the gain as well, I think. Apply. Okay. Okay. There we go. Much better, right? These TOS is kind of out of hand. Good thing. It is 18 maybe, I guess. Yeah, right? Oh! You're touching my boobs! Now you just have normal clothes on.
But
Nice.
party
Very
pants.
cute. Very cute.
Can you
pants.
perhaps show us what you look at, as I am interested in what you see, how big chat is for you, for example?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Like they want to see what I see.
What, maybe the POV cam. Okay, no, it's fine.
No. This is a way better cam. All right. So this is me. This is us. And what I see is this. We got a Google Home over there. This is just the abomination of a setup. You got the.
Oh,
out
that
there.
was my kitchen gun.
Yeah, that's the kitchen gun.
Kitchen Nerf gun.
We have not one, but wait, where's the other one? There, 2 disco balls as well.
That's very important.
Because you gotta have disco in your life. If you don't have disco,
Well, one is a disco ball, the other is a disco plant holder.
yeah, that's true. You brought your entire setup with you. Yeah, of course I did. Like, what the fuck am I gonna do? This is the good sound. This is the good video. I have to bring the entire setup.
Disco ball.
I thought you would use a laptop. We have one laptop in this household, and it's a shitty ass laptop as well. It is not a good laptop.
I can play The Sims on it, actually.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Is the Google Home in English or Swedish?
It's
I think it works with both.
both, yeah.
It works with both.
Pretty sure.
We typically use it
Really
in...
curious? Oh, he's gonna hack it. He's
No.
gonna try to hack it.
Oh, wait, he's gonna do the text-to-speech and tell it things.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's probably gonna do that. I've programmed it with a lot of fun stuff
Go
as well.
Pixie. Go
I
Pixie.
play all the games on my laptop. Yeah, but you have a good laptop as well, right, Pixie?
I spent a lot on that laptop, but
How many
I
years
will
ago?
say-
How many years ago did you spend a lot
Okay,
on
I
that
will not
laptop?
say how many years, but I bought it when I was 25. And we will not comment how long ago that was.
16 years?
You whore. About 7. I'm young, I swear. Explain the recipe in a bit.
Yeah. I will. Thank you for reminding me though. So, with mashed potatoes, like the first.
Hey Google, what is the weather like?
It actually reacted. Okej, nu är det bara svenska också. Nu är det bara svenska. Ett par minuter. Kan
Wow.
någon sätta igång den timern? Ja.
What?
Ja, det är klart det funkade. Det är klart det funkade. Ni är på högtalare. Om ni då säger liksom kommandoordet så kommer det ju funka. Och så berättar receptet på svenska. Okej. Gänget. Ni förstår. Alltså vanlig potatismos. Första steget är skala potatisen. Vad gör du?
I muted the Google Home.
Ja, okej. Ja. Första steget är liksom att skala potatisen för att den ska kokas ju, uppenbarligen. Mosa sen. Sen så anledningen till att jag hackar lite.
Sorry.
Ursäkta dig. Ursäkta dig.
Sorry. Hey Google.
Nej!
Nej!
You can't... Du kan inte läsa upp vad det står där. Oh my god.
Oh, this is so exciting. And I have more wine.
Jesus.
Well, I muted it so you will not be able to hear it.
Nej, men du kan fortfarande inte be den ringa polisen för
Right. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
jag tror vi måste bara dra ut den helt och hållet liksom.
Maybe det skadar den.
Det gör det säkert.
Det ska inte göra.
Ja, men så riktiga köttbullar liksom har ofta... jag måste ta mig den är skitirriterande. Den skär i nacken på mig alltså. Jag ber om ursäkt. Men den är inte alls skön. Jag är jättesöt i den, absolut. Alltså Inemi menade att du ska stänga av mikrofonen så att den inte tar kommandon.
Well, I did not understand that.
Alltså, nej. På engelska. Okej. Oh my gosh.
I really shouldn't be in these streams.
Du borde alltid vara. Du är en jätteviktig del av streamsen. Streamandet.
Yeah.
Okej, så vi ska
Well, you cannot make me speak Swedish. I don't like Swedish.
Nej, sluta! Jag ska fylla på med vatten här. Potatisen. För vi ska börja koka potatisen. Sådär, så. Och så en helvetes massa salt. Alltså, riktigt mycket salt ska man ha. Väldigt mycket salt. Så det är liksom, vi börjar salta här och så bara saltar vi och så saltar vi och så saltar vi och så saltar vi och så salt. Åh, det är mycket salt! Och sen kan man sluta. Varför? För att salt är bra för dig. Det är det egentligen inte, det är relativt dåligt. Men vi gillar salt. Jävlar vad salt alltså! Men det är också för att säga jag saltar väldigt ofta, väldigt mycket. Det är väldigt kul. Det är väldigt gott. Hur länge måste jag prata svenska? Är det 5 minuter? Herregud. Hur ligger det kvar på tiden? Så nu kommer den koka lite. När den har kokat färdigt, jag kommer känna av med en sticka. Jag kan visa den också till mig. Nu ska jag fram den ändå. Jag kommer använda en sån här. Typ en liten nål. Så sticker man med den för att kolla. Herregud, 2 minuter till. Så kollar man hur mjuk potatisen är. Och när potatisen är tillräckligt mjuk så tar man av den, tömmer vattnet och så börjar man mosa potatisen. Jag kommer gå igenom det sen när det faktiskt är dags. Det viktiga här just nu är, jag har hackat lite lök. Och nu kan också amerikanerna lära sig svenska faktiskt. Hackad lök.
Chopped onions.
Jag har hackat lök i köket.
I have chopped onions in the kitchen.
Ja, det här borde vi göra. Svenska
Wait.
versionen.
Oh, I'm the translator? This is awesome. Okay. Say things.
Wait, okay, so
Oh, no, you said English word.
yes, so
You said wait.
yes, so
Okay, go.
okay.
I will translate. This is fine.
Okay, så jag har hackat lök.
I have touched myself. Oh, fuck, I forgot you understand English.
Jag förstår engelska. Åh, herregud.
Take two.
I can speak English again. Fuck you.
Oh no.
I forgot you know English. Literally, I taught English for 10 years.
Wine is great.
All right. So what I was saying before was, we fixed the potatoes. They're gonna get boiling now. When they're soft enough, we're gonna mash them, and we're gonna go through that process later.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Yes,
Boil them,
exactly.
mash them, stick them in a
Shut
stew.
the fuck up. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Yes.
Already? I
Oh,
might
wait.
have been drinking all day. You don't know.
No, you haven't though. We're getting an ad in 4 minutes and 50 seconds, by the way. So yeah, we chopped the onions because in like proper Swedish meatballs, what you gotta do is you gotta have like onions, your minced meat, or in this case it's soy mince that I bought from the store. I don't make my own soy mince because I can't be asked to do it, honestly. It's too much. The soy mince I always use for a base is this. We're not in any way sponsored, but I would love to. Honestly, like if Anama could sponsor me, I'd sell my left testicle for that. I'm not gonna use it anyway. It's fine. And what we do is we cut it open, and then we just dump all of this. Wait. Will you even be able to see here? I'm gonna dump it all in here. Wait, there we go. So this soy mince looks like this.
Wait, it says community challenge. What's
Oh, it's Gordon Ramsay time, right? Okay, so for this lovely little meatball,
that? Wait,
these
Nick,
lovely
wait,
Swedish meatballs. I gotta do a Gordon Ramsay. I don't know how to do a Gordon Ramsay impression though.
Well, he's British, first of all.
He's British, yes, correct. And I mean,
He shouts and curses.
He shouts and curses. He does. But he doesn't speak like this, does he?
No, he's not a posh Brit.
And he's not Cockney British, is he? Either.
Yeah. He's angry British.
Right, so what you fucking do is you fucking take these soy minced meats. It looks like someone fucking crapped out a fucking pine cone, right? Well, you take this soy minced meat. You see, it's like, oh, you can squish it and shit. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So we're gonna form this to balls. But first, before we do that, we're gonna add the fucking onions. Well, that's what we do. We just shove the onions in there. Say you got onions in there. But what you also need to do to give the fuckers texture, and I haven't done this before, because I'm usually too lazy to do it, is we add, I don't fucking know what it's called in English
Don't you
either.
have like a recipe or something? You were just winging it?
Yeah, I'm just winging it.
You're
No, I'm
panic.
We've done this before. I've done this before. Oh.
Ah!
I'm dropping it everywhere.
I've done this before. Whoops! My gran could do better and she's dead. That's funny.
My
That's
gran
very
could do better and she's dead! Alright, In Swedish we call it ströbröd. What the fuck is the English translation?
Crumbs.
Yeah, it's like just crumbs.
Breadcrumbs.
I regret nothing. I just want to make that clear. What have you done, Nick?
I think it was mainly his.
What the fuck have
Thanks
you done?
to him that the Gordon Ramsay thing is coming into fruition. Oh
All right.
god.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
So you just add that. See, it goes like a little layer. You put this away. Feels like the sand on the floor right now. Right. What we do is we take off our rings. That's important. See, I have a ring here.
Oh, can you get it off?
Can I get?
Oh, late.
Can I get it off? Can barely get it on, love. You finished the community go. Oh, that's fucking wonderful, isn't it?
I'd like to think I'm a great teacher.
I do like to think that I'm a great teacher.
Oh,
Thank you so much, wife. You're a wonderful person.
I sweep
You sweet.
you off your feet. I did
Right.
actually. I did.
You did. This is going okay. They couldn't see anything of how much you failed on.
Shut up.
Oh my gosh. Alright, I just need to show my finger here. Oh yeah, you can't see shit. But yeah, my finger is messed up from
Very,
the ring.
very. You got it off?
Yeah, I got it
Holy
off.
shit.
I need to enlarge my rings, both of them. Like I have my wedding ring here, as well.
Question: what is this red?
I wouldn't trust you running a bath, let alone a restaurant. Gordon Ramsay.
What's the red thing?
The red.
Oh, that's
red
just
thing?
in OBS. That's just to show where it is.
What?
Like
So they
where
can
the
see me now.
camera is. Yeah, everyone can see it. The red thing wasn't visible to anyone but us.
Oh, I thought I was outside the screen when I was outside the red box.
No.
Oh,
No.
that's fine.
It's all good. Now you're outside. Like if you can't see yourself, you're outside the screen. If you can see yourself, you're inside. Yes, exactly. Soy minced meat. All right, so you have these basically breadcrumbs. I don't know what the fuck it's called, but it's basically like dry bread that you made crumbs out of, or like some type of paste. So you have all that in here, and then what you do is you use your hands. You mix that shit up. You go nuts. Yeah. And I'm not looking up a recipe today, like my wife got so panicky about. Because I've gotten really, really comfortable in the kitchen these last few years, and I'm thinking I should be able to do this without looking up a recipe. And it's going to be way more fun if I don't have a recipe to go by. What do you mean spices? What do you usually have in meatballs? Spice-wise? Like just salt and pepper?
That's a good start.
It's a good start.
Usually I have some spices, but you don't have to.
We can add salt into the mixture. Salt is a flavor enhancer, so salt always goes in most things. It's a great thing to just add, but too much salt will make the whole thing taste like salt, so think about that. Pepper, also a flavor enhancer, but too much pepper will...
You see it blowing.
Yeah, because of the fan. Too much pepper will make anything really fucking spicy, so...
And the wife will not eat it.
Yeah, the wife will not eat it.
No.
So just think about that. So we had some of those. What else do you usually have in? Like, do you have like garlic powder or something?
Oh, that sounds great.
Because I was thinking of having garlic powder in the mashed potatoes later. Salt, less is more. You can always add more later. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Pixie.
Add garlic powder, she said.
I'm a guy that thinks so many things are spicy, man. Things I eat in school are so fucking spicy, even though my friends say it's not spicy at all. I might be broken. The wife literally, like, she thinks...
I'm the same.
She thinks, like, the Tex Mix spice you buy from the store. Wait, let me show you.
taco krydda.
Yeah, it just says taco, and it's mild.
Mild. It's spicy.
Yeah. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yes, Swedish meatballs are a little bit different from Italian meatballs.
Yeah.
They are way more shit.
No, but like Swedish meatballs usually don't have much spice in them. It's usually
And that's
just like.
why we don't like them.
No, I love Swedish meatballs.
Oh, sorry.
It's a bowl made out
Oh
of.
yeah, that is so spicy. X-Gamer. Me and X-Gamer, we
I think
understand each other.
I really hope he's just making fun of you.
No, he would never. He would never.
Grillkrydda. I'm not gonna add grillkrydda. Grillkrydda in Swedish is just grill spice. It's a spice combination that's sold in most supermarkets and stuff, and it's really really nice. It can go on pretty much anything, but you don't have it in meatballs. Also, you get kind of disgusting around the hand when you do this.
Wife tip, make sure you have cold water on hand before you stuff it in there.
You could have told me.
It helps it not stick. Also very good when you're dealing with doughs. Have really cold water on your hands and you don't stick as much. Oh, and when you're doing the dishes later, cold water. Otherwise it sticks even more.
Right, so we're ignoring everything the wife said, and we're making these balls, one-handed balls. See?
Wife is the best and we love her.
I mean, yeah, she's pretty good. Oh wait, no, we need like the bread to roll it around in as well, right? To give it that texture. No, we don't.
No.
Alright, so you have the ball, you place it on plates. When bowed. Oh, bless you. Jesus fucking Christ.
I fell off the stool.
You fell off the stool. Wait, maybe I can, yeah. I gotta angle it so people can see.
Thank you, Pixie. Thank you.
Point, it helps to not stick.
The cold water.
Yeah,
Bacasio. Thank you.
yeah. Because you.
Thank you, my boy.
Oh my gosh. Because you, that's the new one. No, not bless you. Because you. Because it kind of sounds like you're also having a sneeze.
Thank you. Thank you, X-Gamer.
I thought you said you haven't been in the kitchen a lot, Doctor, and bless you, Mrs. Vem. I've been in the kitchen a lot. Definitely.
What are you?
An
idiot sandwich.
What was that?
What are you?
An
An idiot sandwich.
Oh, I'm an idiot sandwich. I am. Oh, my mum taught me to to do kitchen stuff. She always told me, "You fucking suck." No, she didn't. She didn't teach me anything about the kitchen, actually. I've learned everything I know about the kitchen. I learned myself, right? Gordon, where are you? I'm fucking right here, ain't I? I'm right here. What, you got meatballs fries? No fucking realise. Can't see. You fucking weapon. Etc. Is that Gordon Ramsay enough?
I don't know.
I feel like in the British accent you can say pretty much anything and it's an insult.
Yes.
You fucking kettle.
Yes.
You piece of broccoli.
Yes.
Yeah. We don't want the meatballs to be too big either, but we want pretty big meatballs. Who doesn't like big balls, you know?
That's what he said.
But I don't know if you've been on my latest stream, but I made a cool Spotify relay. Maybe just you'd be interested in having it for a stream too. I'd love to see it at least.
What's a Spotify overlay?
It's an overlay for the stream so that people can see what music is playing on Spotify and stuff.
Oh.
Like it's a player basically.
Oh, it's like a little banner?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, cool.
Something around something like that.
That's what she said. Thank you, Pixar.
You don't want the balls to be too big.
Or you want them to, I don't know.
I don't know about that
To each
either.
their own.
Sorry?
What?
Tiny scrotum?
No, to each their own. God
To each their
damn.
own. I just thought you said tiny
You're
scrotum.
projecting, good sir.
Tiny scrotum! Alright, so we're removing the lid from the potatoes because they started boiling over there. You don't want a lid on anything that's boiling
Unless it's rice.
unless it's rice. Yeah, because usually it'll boil over. And then you have a lot of boiling water on your hands, and that's gonna suck.
Would you like a timer?
No, I usually go by feel.
Okay. But if people did like a timer when they're making potatoes, for the sake of education in this cooking
For the
stream,
sake of it, yeah. Oh shit, right. No, they didn't say they wanted to be educated. They just wanted a cooking stream.
okay, but how long a timer would you generally put for boiling
Potatoes?
potatoes?
Honestly, I never put up a timer. I like poke them and feel around a little bit.
15 minutes, children. Put the potatoes in the water when it's cold. Make it so it's boiling. Take off the top when it's boiling. Put a timer for 15 minutes, then poke it.
Make it so it's boiling. You mean boil the water?
Yes!
Wow.
I'll bring back the gun.
I know you will. Oh my gosh. But yeah, 15 minutes is good. I usually, like I said, just go by feel.
With varying results.
With varying results, arguably. I also have like no fucking patience as well when it comes to cooking food, so sometimes I fuck up just because I wasn't patient enough.
Oh god, and you're used to also timing based on your smoke breaks, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like back in the day
And
when
you
I
don't have that anymore.
back in the day when I was cooking potatoes and stuff, I'd put them on when they reach a boil, take off the thing, go out for a smoke, come back. Those are really good wine.
It's a really good wine.
We're not sponsored by the wine company.
No sponsoring wine.
We're not sponsored by anyone right now, actually. No games. no
Wait,
nothing.
can you open mine and Doc's?
DMs on Discord so you can see.
No,
No.
that's above my knowledge grade.
What did you use for a binder? Just the bread.
Yeah.
But also like this soy minced meat is pretty bindy in itself. Like it won't fall apart really.
It is literally called a shapeable minced.
Yeah, shapeable mince.
Yeah.
It's called.
It's
specifically made for these types of things. It's a Swedish company. Made from Swedish ingredients. They actually work with McDonald's in Sweden as well, and have like a vegan burger on at McDonald's as well. What? What were you gonna say?
I fucked the guy who invented that.
Before we met.
Way before. Sorry.
It's important to note here. Before me and the wife got together, we had both had lives.
I
Right.
dated.
In that case, Doc, look at it after stream. I will. I'll look at it after stream, or when I'm done.
Thank
with
you,
stuff
my
here.
boy.
So
But if you're making non-vegan, eggs are good.
yeah, eggs are usually
Eggs
the
are
binder you use for most things.
Yep.
When you're making non-vegan stuff. Worst thing is like when I thought about this stream, I had this whole thing planned out of like, oh, I'm gonna talk about this, I'm gonna talk about this, and so on.
Oh, okay, what were you gonna talk about?
I don't remember.
Oh.
That's the thing. I was gonna talk about the food process and how you prepare and stuff, but basically like something that I learned pretty early on in my cooking life from a book, actually, like from a proper fucking cookbook made by a family friend as well, Jenny Valdén.
Not the checkered one.
Not the checkered one. No, fuck that checkered one. I never had that one.
That is a staple in every Swedish home. It is their red and white checkered cookbook. This is
Yeah.
what it is.
I grew up in a Hungarian home. But that cookbook argued that before you start actually like making the food, what you want to do is prepare anything that is going in. Like you want to peel all the potatoes, you want to chop all the onions, you want to chop all the veggies before you fry them if you're frying veggies and stuff like that. Like just prepare all of your ingredients so that when you start cooking, you basically just have to like pick up the onions, pour them in, pick up the veggies, pour them in. So you don't have to like chop something up as you're cooking something else, because that'll stress you the fuck out and you might burn something. Like prepare everything that you're going to use beforehand, is what I'm saying. Different when you're boiling stuff, because who the fuck cares about the boiling? We'll just be there. Red and White Cookbook, we have that one, I think. It's so old, it's not red anymore. That sounds like the red and white cookbook, yeah.
Oh, Little Pixie used ground flaxseed and water as a binder. That's fantastic for
Ooh.
if you have bad gas. Yeah, if you feel bloated, flaxseed, fantastic. Chew it.
But also, ground flaxseed and water is a very common vegan binder as well. And it's very good. What do you want from me?
I'm looking for a pun to make with flatulence and flaxseed, and I failed. I failed
You mean
spectacularly.
flatulence?
Yes! Fuck you!
It was right
where's my
there.
where's my
It was
little
right
where's my
there.
little Nerf gun?
You can't shoot me while I'm making balls.
Oh! It worked!
Ah, God,
Yes!
right
Yes,
in,
I could!
right in my fat rolls.
Wow, you doubt me. You doubt me, husband! Now it's here.
I think we have had that way before I existed, yeah. No, the red and white cookbook it was like a staple in Swedish homes overall, because that's the one you got in school, right? Like in
No.
home ec? No?
Well, we used it in the home ec class, yes.
Yeah.
But we didn't get it there.
No, okay, yeah, fine. But we used it. It's like every Swedish home, like you said, every Swedish home has one.
Yeah.
We have it right there. Klutige Kukuk. You can actually bring it out and show it as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm using less smarter version. Yeah, that's the one.
It has basically everything.
Yeah,
It's
it has
really, really
everything you
good.
need.
Oh my god!
And your own cookbook. Remember to not dox yourself, because your name is in that, right?
I don't know. Oh my god! This is 6-year-old me.
Pew pew pew, ouch my fat rolls.
This is 6-year-old me in first class on the KLM flight from
First class as
from
well.
Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam to Dubai Airport in the United Arab Emirates, where we were moving there. It was so nice, and it is filled with our family's personal home recipes. I got this when I moved away from home. It was a personal gift, very beautiful. I love it, love
Very
it a lot.
beautiful.
But I can't use any of the fucking recipes because of this guy.
Suck it!
But, I mean, what my absolute
So
favorite
good.
recipe is a chicken wrapped in a ham, in a special prosciutto ham. It's amazing, but you cannot veganize that shit.
Where you get veganized chicken and prosciutto.
No, you cannot.
Wow.
Hello, soul.
Hello, Dr. Vem can suck it, make it.
It is so good. I could actually share that recipe. It is amazing, and it's really easy.
I mean,
It's amazing.
You've made non-vegan stuff when I'm not home as well, and when I'm home, for that
Yeah,
matter.
but here was this thing. Okay, stream. Now we're gonna have a chat here.
We're gonna have a
Because
chat.
you know, when I'm impressing the ladies or the gentlemen, as it were, in this Dr. Vem's case, I was brought up very traditionally, and I expected to be a housewife. And the way to a man's
Housewife.
heart is through his stomach and yada yada.
It
So
is.
I had a couple of really like banger recipes, like these you bring out to really impress someone. And then I meet this guy right over here.
This guy.
This vegan.
This guy.
And shit.
You
All
weren't
I
able to
had,
use any of that anymore, were you?
all I had was sarcasm and a gun.
Sarcasm and a gun.
That's a miscongeniality reference, if you get that one. I love you, but I did not. Oh, but you did like my cooking, though. I did make some vegan things, and you were very impressed.
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm good.
You're good.
Hey.
You're good. You're good at most
But,
things, honestly.
but the frustration when I could not use my go-to impressa dates recipes. Fuck.
Yeah, that must have sucked.
Wait, can I can't curse, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it is. We literally have all the things on
Yes. And
to
see,
warn
thank you.
people.
Just
Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you for this story time.
back to you.
Back to your regularly scheduled programming. We're gonna place those there. Fuck those things. Right. We have the meatballs. You've seen those. We have Oatly cooking cream. I think that's the best one. It tastes the best. It works the best. Regularly scheduled programming. Yeah. Because you know, back in the day when people had
Programming.
TVs, they
Eating me, isn't it?
yeah, I know. and then like vegan butters is just margarine. And I also
Mrs.
use
Bedtime. Sorry.
with sometimes what I'm calling that.
I got overly excited.
Nice.
Sorry.
I also have what the fuck is it called in English? A fond?
Maybe.
It's like a bouillon, but a thicker bouillon
Yeah.
that you can pour into the sauce later. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna
We're
fry.
making sauce?
Yeah, it has to be with the brown sauce and everything.
Love the
So
brown
what
sauce.
we're gonna do is we're gonna fry the meatballs in the margarine. Hopefully that'll work. I don't know if it will, because who the fuck knows about anything right now. And then when we fried all the meatballs, we're gonna remove the meatballs, we're gonna pour in some cream and some other stuff, and we're gonna make the sauce in the leftovers from the meatballs, right? Because then you get the onions and the meatiness from the mince and stuff. And that's usually how you do it with the real ones as well, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my god, it says kiss wife.
We all need some Mrs. Vem time now. Ah, you're so wonderful. You're so wonderful. Wait, volume set to 50%, right? Saute the meatballs. I don't even know what a
Aw,
saute
Mrs.
is.
Bedtime, so cute.
We all need some Mrs. Vem time. This is true. My head started to hurt a lot. I think I will head out.
Oh.
Oh, that's too bad, X-Gamer. Take care of your head.
Yeah.
Remove yourself from screens and lights and stuff.
Take care.
Take care.
What you're doing? What are you doing? What you're doing?
What you are doing,
What
yeah.
you're
You know the Americans, they don't know the difference between your and your.
Is Little Pixie American?
The Pixie is American, yeah.
Oh, condolences to what's happening.
Condolences. Oh my gosh. Nobles is in America. Panda is in Holland.
Ooh.
Uh,
Love Holland.
Soul Thread is also in America, but on the other side of the coast. On the other coast, rather. Not on the other side of the coast. We know the difference. We just don't use them right all the time. East Coast!
Like East Coast, that's New York coast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also like Boston, and
Is Boston on the coast?
Boston is a fucking harbor town.
Oh yeah, what?
The Boston Tea Party?
Yeah, but I thought
They
that
brought
was...
tea over in boats and they threw it over in the boats in Boston Harbor. I parked my car in Harvard Yard. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. Boston.
Alright, so what I've done now is...
Oh, that's so near Salem. Look at that. Rhode Island.
Alright, we're gonna save that. I
Speaking of Miss Congeniality movie, Miss Rhode Island.
Gordy,
Yes.
Gordy.
Sorry. Hello. I'm toning down.
You don't have to tone down. You should be you. You should always be you as much as you want to be. You should never tone yourself down.
It's in Massachusetts. What?
Yeah, Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh.
You know this.
Oh, I love Rhode Island.
Where are you, Gordon?
Well, I love Miss Rhode Island.
I love Miss New Jersey. Alright, so, it's going to be difficult this part, but what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the water from the potatoes.
Should we move the camera temporarily? No?
No, it's going to be fine.
It's gonna be a great.
Yeah, so you just pour out the water. Be careful though, because like if you pour it too quickly, it'll wash up on the sides and it'll hit your head. No, not your head, your feet, and you'll burn your feet.
And you can really get burned on the vapors as well.
Yeah. But not if you're a man like me. And then you can just leave it be like that for now. And we got that. We're gonna try out like 3 meatballs to begin with. So since these meatballs are made from like a shapeable soy mince, I think what we want to do is like constantly stir them as well, so that they can properly go together. How do you say? How they bind themselves and not just like fall flat and shit. No?
Yes.
You love me, don't you?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
And it's so fun making you so insecure with just a look.
It's fun making me insecure.
It's so fun.
Alright, we're
I
gonna.
feel powerful like a god.
If you hit your head, that would take some skill. I used to live in Rhode Island. Yeah, like if you hit your head with the water, yeah, that would be skillful.
Oh,
Holy shit! Holy shit! What
What
the fuck?
happened?
Thy Knights. Thank you,
Sorry, Knight,
thank you, Knights.
5 subscriptions
What?
to the community.
Thy Knights gifted subscriptions. Holy shit. Right, that's a lot of booty shaking. Booty, 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 booty. Thanks. What were you doing?
Nothing.
Thank you so much, that Knight. Oh my gosh, just a little chaos. Chaos! Gotta do that. Gotta do that. I missed so much in the chat now, though.
How many push-ups is that?
That's a fuck ton of push-ups as well. Lingonberries and Swedish meatballs! Alright, the meatballs are coming along pretty okay. So as you can see, I'm not like forgetting them all the time, but I'm leaving them be a little bit. I'm letting them breathe. Or get formed! Where's my thing? There it is. Alright. When you're making mashed potatoes, the most important thing is this. This is the most important thing when you're making mashed potatoes. It is a potato masher. If you don't have one of these, you can't make mashed potatoes properly. Like you can.
You can use a lot of different things.
But it's gonna suck. This is the best invention in Swedish history. I'm pretty sure it's Swedish at least.
The most important thing is butter.
Love your energy, friend. I love you, Knights. Oh my gosh.
Fork, anyway? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The most
Yeah.
important thing is butter.
Yeah, so first I just start mashing the shit out of it, and then I just add some butter, and we add some butter. We can leave it be for a little while, and we shake the balls around.
Shake the balls. Does that feel good?
No, it barely feels anything. That's the worst part.
Aww, you gotta really go for it.
And then you want to add cream as well in the mashed potatoes. I never measure it when I do this. I just fucking eyeball it.
You
And-
measure with your heart.
Measure with your hearts. That is such a good phrase as well. So we got some more cream. We're adding some more margarine because, you know, we're here for a good time, not a long time. And then you're just like mixing it around with this. Ah!
The potato masher is not Swedish. It seems to be American.
Of course it is. They make all the best things.
No.
They made Pixie and Nobles and Solpre. They were pretty good, I would say.
But you said the best things? I was made in Sweden.
You were, that's true.
Or
You are-
maybe Egypt, but anyway.
You were the bestest thing,
This
though.
is a Swedish invention.
The osthyvel.
The osthyvel. It's for making thin slices out of a big block of cheese.
Big block of cheese.
Big block of cheese. It is fantastic. But avoid this at all costs if you're very high on LSD.
I mean, yeah. It's not
What?
bad. It's not bad. Like, it's good advice.
You can have this sudden belief that you are a big block of cheese.
You could. Absolutely.
And it's not good to
No, it's not.
cheese yourself.
To cheese yourself.
Fuck, she went there? Wait, I got where? What? Oh, you knew about the LSD thing?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The cheese slicer is not specifically Swedish. I think it's actually Norwegian to begin with.
Oh, that might be true. Scandinavian is what I meant to say.
It's a Randy Scandi. Alright, so now I think the meatballs have gotten a good color. they've become a good color, and I'm also realizing that I've made them a bit too big. We're gonna add some more butter into the pan here. Butter. I'll show you right here. There you go.
They look beautiful.
They're like brown, but not entirely brown everywhere.
They look homemade.
In a good way or a bad way?
I'll leave that unsaid.
If you leave that
But
unsaid.
enemy says it's fancy. He says, ooh,
Nice.
fancy.
All right.
Secrets.
We have the. We're not going to use black pepper. So right now with the mashed potatoes, what we have is potatoes, margarine, and cream. And we don't necessarily want only those things. Like that'll work if you like it, like the taste of not much. But what you want to do is, and this is a secret that I actually learned from the wife as well, is you want to add white pepper. It's a white pepper. You want to add a dash of that because it gives it a little bit of a. It's good. It's good. And then you want to add some more salt. We're gonna toss these fuckers a little bit while we're over here. They're actually browning really nicely as well. Like I said before, I wanted to add garlic powder because garlic powder in mashed potatoes like this is fucking amazing. Like the one time white pepper has a use. That and what's it called? Gratinated potatoes. Yes, who is the shit? So right now we've added white pepper, salt, and some garlic powder.
Do you want to play Guess the Origin? You need to figure out the origin for the things you use if you get them right. Minus 10 push-ups, plus 10 if you fail. It's our
Oh my
monthly
fucking
quiz
God.
thing.
Sure. Let's do that. So, what do you mean, oh no, Pixie?
She doesn't believe in you.
No, I know. That's fine. So with the mashed potatoes, we have salt, white pepper, and some garlic powder. What we're also going to add, because I really like it, is this. It's special. Only vegans know about this. Only vegans. It is nutritional yeast, or in English it's just called nooch. N-O-O-C-H. Nutritional yeast is exactly what it sounds like. It's a yeast that's nutritious. It's very rich in B12. And when you add it to stuff, it gets this cheesy taste. Like a cheesy, nutty taste. We're going to add some of that. Here we go. And like I said, we just eyeball everything here. At least to begin with. Oh my god, it smells really good from here though.
What is the origin of nutritional yeast?
Oh my fucking god. I think I actually read this somewhere. I think nutritional yeast is Indian in origin. Like it's from India, I think. I don't have points, I can't TTS it. Sucks to be you. But yeah, I think it's Indian in origin.
Do it, write it up and I'll try to be your TTS.
Oh my lord.
His guess is Indian. Is that correct?
Tis Indian. Oh my gosh. Roasted garlic wrapped in full bacon oven.
That is
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh, that's so good. Yeah. Ah, I'm getting eaten. Oh, yes. I mean, oh my god, we should do that someday soon. The garlic, olive oil,
Oh,
salt
with
and
the
pepper.
with the tomatoes and paprikas
Oh,
in the
fuck
oven
yeah.
and make a soup.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, I miss soup. Oh, and with the cheesy toast.
Should we just keep the computer in here and like start doing cooking streams as well?
No.
No.
Yes, yes.
Right. So now we've fixed some of the mashed potatoes there. Most important part.
Who knows Morse code here? I was blinking SOS.
Most important part of any fucking cooking experience is taste your shit. Not your actual poop. But, oh my fucking god.
United States.
It's US?
You have to make
Cool.
push-ups.
I have plus 10 push-ups. Red Star yeast, dope. You gotta taste what you've made before you serve it to people. So we're tasting like this
Next
teaspoon.
question. I will TTS.
Oh fuck, that's good.
Yep.
I think I've honestly started getting really, really good at just
Oh.
right? did you come a little bit? That's what I'm saying. And like honestly,
That is amazing.
that is so
That is
amazing, right?
amazing.
Right? But that's also a thing that.
Damn, who are you?
What is the spoon's origin? Oh, fuck off, man. I think.
Wait. What is the spoon's origin?
You're saying like the guy asking
I'm trying,
riddles.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean the spoon. I don't think there's a specific origin for the spoon. I just think like that is a human invention. If anything, it's like the Indus Valley, the first civilizations. Yeah, Mesopotamia or whatever.
My guess is the Matrix.
And then my shut up.
This is so fun, like being extra
Right.
dumb to really piss him off. Because really, really dumb guesses make him mad. Oh, ancient. The earliest known is ancient Egypt.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
That's another 10 push-ups then.
Yes.
I guess.
I may take some things that are easier to Google.
He should.
Yes.
Alright, so basically where we're at now in the process is the mashed potatoes are done, which is not necessarily something that you should expect when you're cooking anything, really. Like seasoning anything is a process. You're not gonna get it right the first time. Me getting this good
It's insane.
first try,
Does not happen.
that never happens.
My god, no.
No, but honestly it doesn't. Like you,
I love this new TTS that is
I
me.
love this new Usually when we cook food, it takes like 2 or 3 tries
Yeah.
before I'm like, okay, this is good.
Add some salt.
Yeah.
Add some butter. Add
Right.
some. Can I have more?
Kisses?
No.
You want more of this?
Yes.
But I threw away the
Now, give me a bigger spoon. Bigger spoon.
bigger spoon. Jesus. This. You guys know like how good food is when you're drunk as well. This is her right
This
now.
is amazing.
This is her right now.
I'm not drunk.
You literally are though.
This is so good.
It is, right? Alright, we're gonna.
What is the origin of salt? Earliest known large-scale salt production.
Oh my
Two.
earliest known.
Two possible answers.
Earliest known large-scale production.
Mhm.
Holy shit! Has to be near a sea. Cause salt back in the day was manufactured or like gathered near the sea. It's still done that way, but in, less so. I'm just gonna add that part as well. Oh no! Thank you. Dude, don't. You're literally on camera. You're literally on camera.
I didn't see.
You literally see from that
No!
angle. Oh my gosh. I would say for earliest large-scale production, I want to say like modern-day Turkey, like the Ottoman Empire.
Turkey has been
Oh
the
my fucking
best.
god! I knew that was coming.
What?
you touching me inappropriately. He knew that was gonna happen.
No, that's not what he means. That is not what he means.
That is literally
No,
what
he
he means.
means something else.
Nick, did you mean that she would touch me inappropriately? That is exactly what I mean. China, Romania. Oh my gosh, Romania, really? Romania must have been a part of the Ottoman Empire at that point. No, BCE. Holy shit, that's way before. That's way, way before. Alright, interesting.
Huh.
That is really cool as well. Oh yeah. So now that the mashed potatoes are done, we're just gonna let them be here. We're just gonna let them breathe for a little while.
So,
I was going to make a joke about how this food was going to give you a handy after this, and then I turn around and she's shoving a towel in your pants.
a hand is so sloppy. He's gonna get a full on.
Andy's so sloppy.
That's just lazy.
I just want to point out as well that like I'm wearing sweatpants basically.
Oh. So
No, you don't. You're literally on camera.
Alright.
Holy shit.
Okay.
Don't spread this video around. Jesus fucking Christ. Your dad might see this. I'm just saying. Like this is on the internet. Anyone might see this. Your colleagues might be watching right now.
They know me. It's fine.
They know you. Uploads to YouTube.
So, I thought we could be friends.
I have sexual themes clicked in. I do.
Oh, for
What?
a double or nothing. Fail ×2.
Oh my gosh, alright.
Let's get ready to rumble!
I'm gonna try one of these meatballs. Not the best, but definitely good.
More spices.
You don't want to try?
No. Wait, why if you read a bit up? Wait, I missed context.
What?
Oh, wait. What is the origin of the frying pan?
Oh my
2
God.
answers. By the way, I can offer hints.
Alright, yeah, give me a hint. Fucking give me a hint.
I missed context. No.
Oh my god.
He has asked for a hint.
Could you tell me what part of the world? 2000 to 300 BCE. Frying
The-
pan.
If you fail, that will be 20 push-ups.
Do I have to get the country right, or can I just say the continent?
Country. Now, continent? Incontinentia.
Incontinentia!
Buttocks! If you
Continent
haven't-
is cheating. Oh, come
If
on.
you've never seen The Life of Brian, shame on you and go see it. Or watch it online or whatever, I don't care. But if you guess one of the areas, I'll take it. No continent.
Alright. The thing is, like, early technology, it's cooking, it's 2300 BCE. Thing is, like, with a frying pan, it has to be cast iron as well, and iron was mostly abundant in, like, Europe and Germanic areas. That is why most of, why white people were so good at colonizing after a while, because we had access to iron way before anyone else, and then like swords and muskets and shit. So it must have been somewhere around Europe. I'd say Spain, Spain around there. That area. The cast iron is the modern version. Oh fuck. Alright. Yeah, I said Spain. That's.
He said
I must have
Spain.
fucked up. I'm just thinking, like, what else did they make paella with? Iberian Peninsula? Isn't that?
That's Spain.
You can change it.
Since you didn't know about the ancients.
First frying pan? Oh wait, that could be copper as well. That's the thing, because copper iron frying pans heat up real quick. But that could be... I don't think the Egyptians used that necessarily.
No?
No, I'd say like it's definitely somewhere in Africa then. Northern Africa, I'd say like Egypt, Tunisia, somewhere
You
around
said
there.
it earlier in the stream. Oh, you said it earlier in the stream.
So then it's like the Ottoman Empire, or I don't remember what I said earlier in the stream. I'd say the north of Africa, like Egypt. Jesus fucking, it's not even a full bottle of wine, wife. You really need food, don't you?
No, I'm
Yes,
fine.
you do. You need food.
I'm great. I'm great.
Oh my gosh.
Mesopotamia!
Ah!
Mesopotamia and ancient Greece.
Gotcha.
Around 2000 to 300 BCE. I need to pee.
You need to pee. Oh my god, 1770? Fuck me, bro. Guys suck at these trivia things. I said Middle East. Does that count for my score? Right? Does it count for his score? Let me just change the fucking push-up debt. Oh, then enemy. It's since you fuck with me here, you gotta check out what happened in 1770. You need to find something interesting or cool that happened in 1770. And there was a follow-up as well. Wait. Iron cast frying pan origin. That has to be Europe. Like I'm gonna stick with Spain then. Spain or Italy, like somewhere in the south of Europe, for sure. I wanted you to check up the year 1770 and see if anything fun happened then, or interesting. Dodo! No, come on! I'm dropping my balls!
What?
I'm dropping my balls! Ouch,
Oh,
ouch,
no.
ouch, ouch, ouch. Ah! Jesus. You love me, don't you?
Yes.
Like, you like me, you enjoy my presence. The bolts are just falling off here. It's pure chaos. I picked a thing that is too small.
Typical.
Oh, come on!
He said it, I didn't.
You said it's typical.
Oh, yeah, yes. Oh, yes.
Alright, wait. Gustav III becomes King of Sweden. Wait, in 1770. Ah. Oh. That was too warm. That was too hot. Alright, now all the meatballs are done. We're gonna add cream to the pan. I'm gonna add some more cream to the pan. There we go. King Louis married Marie Antoinette in 1770. Whoa, he wasn't king yet, but hey ho. Cool.
1776.
Also, the Boston Massacre was in 1770? That's before the independence, though. Like, what was the Boston Massacre? Did the British do something bad? It feels like the British did something bad in 1770. The British usually do something bad in those eras. Alright, so we're adding just oat cream to the pan. It's gonna look like this. It's just white for now. What we're gonna do to give it some color, and this is what you do with vegan creams, usually at least, is you add a bit of soy sauce. You want to make it brown, like that. It's supposed to be a brown, creamy sauce. So you add some dark soy sauce. You have like the lighter, you have the lighter Japanese soy sauce, and then you have the darker Chinese soy sauce. The Chinese soy sauce you just have to add like a dash of to give it the correct color. Shot into a crowd of protesters. Oh my gosh. Guess the origin of plastic bottles. Oh my god. Wait, no. Since this, the pan I'm using right now is not made for steel stuff. Why don't I have that? Yeah, here we go. Let's see it. So the pan I'm using right now is a pan made out of, where it has like a porcelain sheen to it, porcelain alloy, and you don't want to use anything metal on that because that'll scratch up the porcelain. So, not porcelain. What's it called?
What?
Never mind. It's not Teflon either. That's the thing. I want it to not be Teflon.
Ceramics.
Ceramic. It's a ceramic pan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a gift from, I think it was Lenny, right? Lenny gave it to us.
It was
for
a
our
wedding
wedding.
gift from Lenny. She's a doctor.
Lenny is a doctor.
And super cool.
Yeah. Her real name is Helena, but she's called Lenny because she's cool.
Like Helena of Troy, because she's gorgeous.
We're gonna add some of this. This dash. So right now the sauce is just leftover margarine, cream, soy sauce. But what we're going to do with this, we're gonna decrease the heat to like a light simmer. I'm gonna remove it from the heat just for a little while. And what we're gonna do is, this you can do with any sauce, or usually any sauce that's kind of cheap or easy to make, is you add some flour. You just add normal flour because that acts as a thickening agent. So it makes the sauce a bit creamier or thicker. And we have just normal fucking flour. Actually, hella cool. Easy name's Helena, but you can call me Lenny, right? No, Lenny's also a fucking cool person as well.
Yeah.
She's a doctor. She's like one of the most fun people I've ever met.
Yes. My friend.
So you just add like a pinch of flour. You don't want a lot of flour because too much. What? That's too.
Look at your black pants.
Oh shit! Right.
I can help.
You just want to hit me. Oh come on! I didn't add flour to my ass, did I? Come on! What? God damn it!
It's so touchy.
Like the closest I ever come to breaking the terms of service is when you're on stream.
So proud. Thank you.
So proud.
Oh yay! X Gamer is back. His headache is over. Yay!
Nice. That's good to hear.
I am so very helpful. Thank you, Nick. Yes. Thank
So
you.
very helpful.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So we added some flour
Eager
to
to
the
please.
sauce as a thickening agent, and now I've also removed it from the heat because the pan itself is pretty warm. And with a sauce, you never want it to overheat. Like, my sauce has started bubbling. Let's see if I can show you. Like, there are some bubbles on it. Here? That's too close. Wait, here? Is that better? Yeah, like you can see there are bubbles here. That's probably because I've stirred it a bit, but also because of the heat itself. but
Doc.
then it's kind of done.
The plastic bottle, modern. Guess 1900th century for 10 extra push-ups if you guess right.
The plastic bottle.
I don't understand the sentence. I don't think.
It's somewhere in the 1900s, and 10 extra push-ups. You guess right? What? You
So
watched
you want-
Starfield, nice.
You want to guess wrong?
Oh, guess a decade in the 1900s. And I don't get the push-ups.
He's tired, I'm drunk. This is a match made in heaven.
Alright, freaking plastic bottle. It's definitely after oil was invented, or
Wait, what's
found.
10 a.m. Swedish time?
That's 10 o'clock in the morning. 10 a.m.
Ew.
Enemy is in Sweden as well. You've met Enemy.
Yeah, I know enemy, but I 10 a.m. was the confusing part.
AM is always before noon. And you asked!
Mm.
You don't want an answer? I wonder why else I told you. I'd say like the 1930s, around there. Maybe 1940s even. Alright. We are actually done with the cooking, gang. We have made probably the best fucking mashed potatoes I've ever made in my life. Right here. Some good shit. Mashed potatoes was made with normal fucking potatoes. Oh, we got an ad incoming as well in 5 minutes. Normal fucking
Speak
potatoes. We got some oat cream, some margarine, like a huge amount of margarine, really. Like more margarine than you think would be good, but it tastes pretty good. We had some white pepper, we had some salt. We had
Nobles.
where's the hairnet? I see hair.
And
Fuck
the-
off, Nobles.
The beard net.
And we added, the most important part here was nooch. We added nutritional yeast. It's fucking amazing. The meatballs you can see on the tiny camera here and also in the background, made with foambollfärs anamma. Basically a formable soy mince that you can buy in Sweden. We added just salt and pepper, some normal, just onion, just yellow onion, and some, I still don't know what the word for it is, ströbröd.
Breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs, yeah. Beard nets too, fuck off. And then we made the sauce. The sauce is just a normal brown, creamy sauce. I'm just actually gonna taste it, because I haven't done that yet.
He cooked, I finished a small bottle of wine.
It's not the best sauce I've ever made, but we can eat it. You can use the one I had.
Ew.
No, okay, what the fuck, what do you mean you? I can suck my dick, but you won't use the same.
Well, you can't say that.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but what country for the plastic bottle?
What country for the plastic bottle? That wasn't good at all, you say?
Yo,
What do we need to add to the sauce?
everything.
Everything. Alright,
Yeah.
gotcha. So the sauce is not
It
done
tastes
yet.
like vegan cream only.
Alright,
Yeah.
we're adding stuff.
Yeah, that was bad.
It was bad?
That was really
I
bad.
thought it was fine. Now we're adding more of the
And
bouillon thing.
like the really dark soy.
Yeah?
You could have the lingonberries in it. No, sorry.
No, please, help me. You have better taste than I have. Like, I'd be okay with this sauce. What the fuck? Alright, so the sauce is not done yet.
Salt and pepper are good things.
Salt and pepper? Oh, that's too much. And I can't put the ring back on. Brown sugar? Ooh, brown sugar? I don't usually have brown sugar in my brown sauce. Have you ever used brown sugar?
Well, yes. Typically wine sauces, I think.
Get some salt, we have some pepper. This is also an important part of cooking, is having someone else taste your shit. Not your actual poop, like the stuff you've made. Taste your food, taste your sauces. Because your own sense
Taste
of
the
taste.
sauce.
Your own sense of taste is not always the best. Obviously. And you need a second opinion.
But you're cooking for you.
Yeah, if you're cooking for yourself, then you don't need a second opinion, but it's always nice with a second opinion. Nope. I think it's just more soy sauce. Like that's the only idea I have. Why is there salt and pepper in different cupboards? Because I use salt all the time. I don't use pepper all the time. Like you salt spaghetti, you salt potatoes, you salt all the food you make.
Not more soy.
No more soy.
Definitely not more soy.
What do you think then?
Oh, kurva!
Oh kurva! The country, fucking the U.S. The U.S. made the plastic bottle. That's my guess. What do we think? More pepper. All right. Did you just want to add spice?
Yes. It's blah.
It's blah. All right.
Okay, now I did not see at all how much you did of things, but
Oh.
it's fine.
You're rare. Alright. Now we're adding a lot of spices to this sauce that I didn't sign up on, but that's also because the wife has opinions and her opinions matter a lot. They might actually be the most important opinions in this household. We're gonna remove it from the heat for a little while. I don't know if the cayenne pepper was a good idea. No. With the white pepper and the black pepper, this is gonna be spicy
How much did you put in?
stuff. Unsubscribing. Is it real meatballs? No, it's soy meatballs. What do you mean unsubscribe?
Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. And nothing's gonna ever keep you down.
Yeah. It tastes more like a pepper sauce now, though.
Yeah. That's not bad for meatballs.
Alright, so the real brown sauce you usually make with like pretty heavy cream, and you make it from the juices left from the meatballs, but like a vegan meatball won't leave that much juices. Did this man just say white and black pepper is spicy? I mean, you can feel it in your throat. Ain't eating a meal without meat? Well, someone's not surviving the apocalypse. Alright, well the sauce is done. Almost done. The sauce is almost done. The thing is, like, when I'm just making sauce like this, I suck at making normal fucking sauces. But if it's like a sauce that you have spaghetti in or mushy stuff, that are add lingonberries. In Sweden, you can buy lingonberries in a can, or like in a glass can, fucking anywhere. It's fucking weird how much of a stereotype it is, but you can get lingonberries anywhere you want. Like, you can have lingonberries with mashed potatoes and a hot dog, usually in any hot dog stand you find as well. I'm allergic to everything that substitutes meat protein. Beans? Are you allergic to beans? She's fixing the flavor profile. She is. I mean, you're way better at sauces than I am.
I was raised to be a housewife. As you saw previously in Linda Time. I think it made more.
I can feel the hint of lingon, but my family used to get a bucket of lingonberry jam. Yeah, my family as well. We don't eat lingonberries that often anymore. Oh my gosh, I can just sit down and you'll fix the sauce then? I very much appreciate it that way. But yeah, so lingonberries is a very important part with Swedish meatballs, and I turned off the stove as well, but it's probably still warm, but it's off.
I know.
Okay. Oh wow, you saw it. Lingonberries with Swedish meatballs is extremely important. You gotta have lingonberries with brown sauce, Swedish meatballs, and mashed potatoes. 2 last origin guesses, and then we will end. Y'all are cute. We are very cute. We're super cute, actually. Oh my gosh. But yeah, we're almost done here. We're just fixing the sauce. And then I think we're gonna like plate this. I say plate, we're just gonna put it up in like bowls or something. What are you looking for? Sugar?
Yeah.
Alright, interesting. Before you end, you need to plate that shit and show the camera. Like, should we plate it properly then? Yeah, okay, we gotta plate it properly. Alright, I'll plate it properly and I'll show the camera. Wifey is fixing this. Yeah, wifey is fixing this. Yeah, sorry. Not we are, but the wife is fixing the sauce. Let her cook! Let her cook! Oh my gosh. Yeah, so we're gonna plate it as well, I guess. But we're gonna probably plate this and then maybe watch some more. What were we watching before?
Wednesday.
Wednesday! Right. The new season of Wednesday is out. Maybe add some nutritional yeast. Ooh.
Yes.
Actually, shit, I've never added nooch to this type of sauce before.
Yes, we have.
No, not just normal sauce. Try that out. Or
I think a
spin.
little bit more.
You think so?
Yeah, that was basically nothing.
It's a little. Is that better? We've added so much to the sauce right now. This also goes to show that the sauce was shit to begin with, because now the wife has to fix all of my mistakes, and we're trying to.
And I'm not a good vegan cook, because it's a completely different science when it's vegan.
It is.
It is.
You really still need to finish Breaking Bad. What is the origin of sugar? Fuck, that's. Isn't it like sugar from sugar canes? It's like Barbados, Bermuda. What's that part of the world known as? Like the Caribbean. I think sugar is from the Caribbean. Netflix didn't really post
I don't
about
think
it.
you can get it better than this.
All right, I'll taste it.
I think we had a bit too much of the peppers.
Yeah, I did. I think it's actually pretty good now, but yeah, the pepper is overwhelming.
Yeah.
But the nooch made it way better.
Yeah, and this,
The
the
sugar.
sugar weighs it out a little bit,
Yeah.
and the lingonberries, but it's hard to really
Yeah.
counteract.
All right. Thank you so much, wife, for fixing it. Oh my gosh. I've seen ads and trailers for it, but I didn't realize that it was out now. Yeah, the second season came out today, I think. Right?
We watched it yesterday.
No, we watched it today. This morning.
No, we watched it yesterday.
Oh, right, because this morning you were watching that shitty Hallmark movie.
I love Hallmark movies. They are safe.
Yeah. A Hallmark movie, you always know what you get.
Yes.
Sugar's fucking old. New Guinea. India. Oh, yeah, of course. 8,000 years ago? Jesus Christ. Last one. Alright, I have to rewatch season 1. I mean, the first season of Wednesday was really good, I think. It was released 3 days ago. Thank you, Soul Thread. I'm sure it will taste good with all the food together and a big bottle of wine. Actually, don't we have like a big bottle of red wine?
This was just a little
Just a teeny tiny baby.
teeny tiny one.
But don't we have
I'm
like
not
a-
that drunk.
Don't we have a big bottle of Zinfandel?
Yeah, we're not opening that now. You won't drink it.
No, I won't. I can't stand red wine. It makes my head hurt. What is the country of origin of your beautiful wifey? Parents' birth country. That's Sweden. They're from Sweden. Basically, like a stone's throw away from each other. She might be inbred. We don't know.
Dude,
I mean, in Sweden, if both of your parents are Swedish, there's always a chance that you are a little bit inbred. The only countries worse are like Jesus fucking Christ. See, that's a typical inbred aggressiveness. No. I'm gonna get shot again on stream. Someone lost his handy privileges. Get him, girly. What up, Coffin? I'm not abusive. Don't say that. We ain't gonna talk about mine like 14% German blood. Oh right, I can't say that. Only countries that are worse than Norway, Finland, Denmark, and Iceland. For real though. No, come on. Really? Alright, I'm gonna get shot. Fuck! Oh, that hurts! Oh, you shot me right in the neck as well. Ouch. You happy now?
Headshots!
Oh my gosh. Alright, me and Billy Bob over here, we'll plate up some food, and then we're gonna go eat.
What?
What?
What did you call me?
What?
Oh, you?
Oh, you!
You wanna, you,
Oh!
unloaded on you, yeah? Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Did you throw one at me? No.
Yes. Yes, I did.
Yes, I did. Oh
You
my
see
gosh.
what I put up with? I'm a freaking hero.
You're such a hero. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, deserved. Ain't no way it hurts that much. I think it hurts.
It really doesn't. You barely feel it.
No, no, but that's the thing. No, like, smokeless, please, thank you. Like, the small pinprick pains of like those darts or like needles and stuff. That I really feel those. Those hurt me a lot. But like a punch to the face, a smack, that's not too bad. But like the small pinprick pains, they hurt as fuck. Wow. So no tattoos? What do you mean tattoos? No. Yeah, I don't know. I've done tattoos. Like I have a couple of them. But they hurt. They do. I don't enjoy getting them. Can we test out that theory? No. No, we're not going to test out that theory. Were you going to lick me?
What? I would never.
Yes, you would. Alright, we're going to plate this. I have an idea for how to plate it, but I don't know if it's going to work out the way
Make
I
a
want to.
volcano.
That's what I wanted to do, actually.
What? I wanted to say something ridiculous.
TW, those are some stunning plates.
Thank you very much.
Oh, those are our wedding plates. We bought them for ourselves as a wedding gift to
Yup,
ourselves.
to ourselves. Okay, this is the worst plating in the world. Alright. This is gonna suck ass.
Then do something else.
No, why?
God.
It's not too bad. Alright. This is gonna be your plate, wife. Is that okay for you?
Oh, that's mine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want less, more?
No, that's good. Can I get some lingonberries?
Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh!
Obviously, it's not done. God.
Wait, oh, we gotta do the fancy schmancy of like having a string of it.
No! It's not supposed to be chunky when you do that. Yeah. Oh, God. I lost my appetite.
Now I'm liking it even more. Alright, and here we have lingonberries and Swedish meatballs with mashed potatoes and brown sauce.
This masterpiece is called the first menstruation.
And there's also a little bit of liquid poop here, just like in the first menstruation.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of... And
We're
some
very
chunky...
intimate.
that's your plate.
Oh god.
You're welcome. Now I'm gonna make my plate. You can bring that to the living room if you wanna.
But you just want me to leave the stream, don't you?
No, just so you don't have to sit there. Oh my fucking god!
Oh god. This is why I should not be on the internet. On the interwebs.
On the interwebs. I'm making a slightly bigger volcano for myself.
What, you're sticking with the volcano?
Yes!
Yes.
Shut up!
Sure.
We're adding some more meatballs, like twice the amount that the wife got.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
Yep.
The sauce is growing on me as well. Oh no, shit, I dropped it.
Drop what?
Nothing. Is it good?
Yeah.
Nice. Alright, and then I also need to have like this is an even worse menstruation. Just
That's
real
pre-menopause menstruation.
real thick.
God.
There you go. A bigger one.
Man, if I have sauce with my food, I fucking drown that plate with sauce. Do not put that out of context, please.
I
He's a
fucking
fucking
drowned that plate in
cheapskate.
sauce. What do you mean? Do you want more sauce then?
I got like 3 drops of sauce.
Oh my. Come here. Come here. I'll sauce you up. Better?
Yeah.
You want more?
No, it's fine.
You want more?
No,
You want
thank
more?
you. Really good. Really good.
I'm having a lot of fun. This was really fun, actually. It was really fun. Alright, we're gonna go eat this, and y'all are going to go to someone else. Excuse you, wife. Yeah, move.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Ah, there you are. Wait, are you here?
This has been great.
This has been great,
This has been
actually.
great.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. Like now they can see my plate as well in the small
Oh,
camera and everything.
There.
Oh my gosh, you got to do this again. Thank you very much. That's a special sauce. If you know what. Come on, X Gamer. Come on.
Wow.
Oh wow. We need to check out who is live. Ouchies. No wait, don't. We're gonna turn it off. I gotta log into fucking Twitch. I forget about this all the time. Oh.
Dr. Vim's cooking is so bad, it should come with a hazard warning. Every meal he touches looks like it lost a fight with a garbage disposal and tastes like regret served on a paper plate. He could burn water, undercook toast, and somehow make instant noodles inedible. The smoke alarm doesn't even bother going off anymore.
The smoke alarm doesn't even bother going off anymore? What the fuck, dude?
You have actually ruined instant noodle once.
when did I do? Oh right, yeah, no, I did.
When
I
I
did.
was sick and you seriously undercooked them.
That's not even. Jesus fucking Christ.
It was horrible. And I'm picky with food in my best day, and I was sick.
Nobles is just coming at us with another banger here as well. Yep. Oh my gosh. Alright. We're gonna see here. Who's up? We got Fasu up. We got Baby Leg. We got fucking ginger bearded one. Oh my gosh. What do you want, gang? Do you want some Baldur's Gate or do you want some like World of Warcraft? How it is noodles? I don't even know. I don't even know, honestly.
Very, very talented.
Random. We could do a random raid for sure. All right, just random raid. All right. Ooh. More cooking stuff probably, because the random raid usually picks something. Yeah, Daishima VT. I'm gonna check them out before we raid, because we have accidentally raided like bot channels before. Oh my gosh, this looks really nice. Daishima seems to be a VTuber who is cooking something that is boiling at the moment. Hot pot! Oh my gosh. Yes, we're definitely rating a hot pot channel.
The fuck is that?
Hot pot, it's Chinese.
No. The anime.
Oh, it's
making food.
It's a VTuber. This is a very common thing on Twitch that people use avatars instead
And
of
a
actually.
big gloved black hand.
Those are probably from the actual person.
Creepy as fuck.
What do you mean creepy? No.
What?
No.
No?
Wife has never seen a VTuber before. She doesn't understand true art.
I'm also boomer adjacent.
She is very much boomer adjacent. All right.
Spiritually.
We're gonna go over to Daishima. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone. Love you
still
so
love you,
much.
Soul.
All right. I'll see you some other day. Kisses and love. Bye bye.